Hello, very good morning and welcome back to our video lectures. I am Vaibhav Shah. This is our subject economics. We are running on chapter number 6, that is unemployment, and today is our lecture number 8 in this particular chapter. In last lecture, in causes of unemployment, we discussed about the high rate of population growth rate and same time the slow rate of increase in employment opportunities. Now today we are going to start with the third point, that is low rate of savings and investment. As I said in last lecture also, first of all you have to mention all these 10 points and then you have to start writing each one in a detail, either in your concept book or in your fair book as per your convenience. Now let us start the third point, that is low rate of savings and investment. Indian planning has increased national income, but simultaneously population growth rate also increased. As a result, per capita income increased at a lower rate than national income. Due to low per capita income and expenses in satisfying basic needs of burdensome population kept saving and investments at a lower rate. Because of low rate of investment in industry, agriculture or other sector, they could not create much employment opportunities, which increased the problem of unemployment. Now here we are going to discuss about the third important reason of the unemployment rate is low rate of savings and investment. This point is indirectly related with the high rate of population growth rate, but directly it is also related with the inefficiency and lack of the infrastructural facilities of the country also. Indian planning has increased national income. It means after all 5-year plans will be able to double or triple our national income, but simultaneously population growth rate also increase. We can't do anything regarding this population growth rate either through any legal procedure or any other social or moral responsibilities. So the basic fruits of this increasing national income is not getting by each and every section of the population, and the reason behind this is that the high rate of population growth rate. In other countries there is a high rate of there is a high rate of national income, but simultaneously there is the rate of population growth is lower, and that's why their development is increasing because their per capita income is also increasing. But in our country, with increasing national income, the population growth rate also increased, and as a result the per capita income increased at a lower rate than national income. Let us take one example. If the national income is increased by 3.5% every year, same time the population growth rate is observed at 2%. So if we deduct this population growth rate from this particular increase in national income, that is 3.5% minus 2%, then there is only 1.5% growth in per capita income, which is very negligible. So in comparison of other countries, whether it is developed or developing, the per capita income of India is increasing at a very slower rate. It is not the happy moment that our population growth rate is increasing, because it is obvious that in any of the country the population growth rate is minimum increased by 1% every year. The per capita income is increased minimum 1% every year. So same as in our country also, in spite of increase in national income, the per capita income is not increasing that much, and because of the highest level of population growth rate. Now, due to low per capita income, all these things are interconnected. that is the increase in national income, increase in population growth, increase in per capita income. But when the rate of increase in per capita income is very low, people are running out of their savings and they haven't anything amount left for investment, or they cannot save as per their need, because the growing population will steal the fruits of this development or growth. So as a result, per capita income increase at a lower rate, and due to low per capita income and expenses in satisfying basic needs of burdensome population kept saving and investment at a lower rate. Here two reasons are that first one is a low per capita income in the country. Second, expenses in satisfying basic needs of burdensome population. All those who are below 15 years is burdensome population, and above 64 years, because they are not contributing anything in the income of the family or income of the nation. So whatever expense is borne by their family members behind them will be the burdensome, and obviously it reduces the savings of that family. At one hand, we are having very less per capita income, so our standard of living is already very poor, and with that, expenses in satisfying basic needs of this burdensome population, all the expenses behind them regarding their carrying, maintaining, shelter, food, clothes, books, education, everything is included in this. But same time, this increase in expense of burdensome population is also the problem, because this increasing expenses reduces the savings, and if the savings will reduce, then there is no capital is left for the investment purpose, and that's why the investment is very lower. So first of all, increase in national income, same way increase in population, which results into low per capita income, that results into higher expenses, and low per capita income results into lower savings, and that results into lower investment. And as lower investment is there will be the lower opportunity of the employment, and it results into higher level of unemployment. Because of low rate of investment in industry, agriculture or other sector, they could not create much employment opportunities, which increase the problem of unemployment. As I said that all these points are interconnected with each other. If there is a possibility that the increasing national income will result into highest level of savings and investment only when the population growth rate is lower. If the population growth rate is low and national income is higher, then people will be having the higher per capita income, and that results into higher savings, and that results into higher investment. But here it is not possible in a country like India, because our population is increasing very fastly and we are not able to get the fruits of the development. So that results into low rate of savings and investment. Now let us move forward. Point number 4, that is capital intensive production techniques. There is a scarcity of capital and abundance of labor in India. In these circumstances, to solve the problem of unemployment, labor intensive production techniques of production should have been adopted, but from the second 5-year plan, India has adopted development of heavy and basic industries. In planning schemes also, in place of capital intensive production techniques, labor intensive technique was given less importance. In agriculture and industries, mechanization was adopted, which increased employment at slow rate. In industrial sector also, to increase productivity and to get security against organized labor unions, such a policy is adopted which saves labor. Other than that, railway, irrigation, roads, construction, and public sector of state also uses capital intensive technique. As a result, unemployment problem has become acute, and that is why Bhagwati Committee and Venkataraman Committee, which was formed to study unemployment, also recommended to use less of mechanization. Now let us start discussing about this particular topic. Basically, in any of the production, we are having two different production techniques. First one is a labor intensive production technique and second one is a capital intensive production technique. As we all know that in labor intensive production technique more of the labor is using, and it will be the blessing for the countries who are having the highest level of population or the highest level of labor force. While the capital intensive production technique, in which there will be the more use of a capital than of a labor, and basically it is related with the automatic production techniques, and in which more of the capital is used, so basically it is related with the capital intensive goods, and that's why it is capital intensive production technique. In a country like India, where the highest number of population, or we can say the higher labor force is there, labor intensive production technique is a blessing for us. But due to some of the reasons, we are neglected this production techniques and we are using capital intensive production technique. By using capital intensive production technique, we are having two type of problem. First one is that we cannot give the more number of employment opportunities to the laborer, where we can give them the maximum number of chances for employment. And second problem is that whatever we are using in capital intensive production technique, that technology is coming from the outside of the countries, and for purchasing them we have to pay our valuable foreign exchange resources. And both of these way, the suffering is on India only. It means at one hand there will be the increase in unemployment ratio, and on second hand there is the valuable foreign exchange is wasted behind all these kind of goods. But let us now discuss about this point in a detail. There is a scarcity of capital and abundance of labor in India. It is clearly given in first point or first line that we are lacking the capital, because as a developing country we do not have that much enough capital that we can produce each and everything, or we use the capital intensive production technique instead of labor intensive production technique. So we are facing scarcity of capital, but at the same time, as we discussed in above 3 points also, that we are having the abundance of labor in India. It means the abundance of labor supply. In these circumstances, to solve the problem of unemployment, labor intensive technique of production should have been adopted. It means if we are using labor intensive production techniques more, then there will be maximum chance that we are absorbing more number of employees, and that results into the highest level of employment ratio in a country. Done? But from the second 5-year plan from 1956 to 1961, India has adopted development of heavy and basic industries. I think you have heard the name of P.C. Mahalanobis, who has favored the basic and heavy industries in India from second 5-year plan only, because he wants to make India a self-sufficient country in terms of machineries and technology. And that's why from the second 5-year plan itself, India has adopted development of heavy and basic industries, where they are focusing on the machineries instead of humans. In planning schemes, also in place of capital intensive technique, labor intensive techniques was given less important. Line this statement also. In all the planning schemes, on one hand, we are focusing on increasing employment opportunities. At the same time, on second hand, we are preferring more number of capital intensive production techniques instead of labor intensive. So it is the problem of India that at one hand we are not providing a proper employment opportunities due to slow rate of rise in employment opportunity, and on another hand we are focusing more on capital intensive production technique, which itself reduces the employment opportunities. In agriculture and industries, mechanization was adopted, which increased employment at slow rate. These are the two main sectors of Indian economy at the time of independence. Agriculture sector was the main, where almost 72% population were employed or were dependent on agriculture sector. Same way as we seen in this particular topic also, that from second 5-year plan our focus is on basic and heavy industries. So main two sectors, that is agriculture and industry, in which initially the manual work was done with the help of labor, but now instead of this manual work or usage of labor, mechanization was adopted, which increased employment at slower rate. Because in one farm, the work of 10 people will be done by a one machine with a very less time and with a very less cost. So nowadays people are more focusing on cost advantages than on employment opportunities. We can see that in the initial years in agriculture and in industries, like Bhavnagar is having the history of cloth making industries, and today also we are having the buildings of some of the cloth making industries in India, where the process of cotton cloth was a very high. At that time they are using maximum labor intensive production techniques, and they are in the favor of labor intensive production techniques. That's why they are giving more and more job opportunities. But now in place of these industries, now in these industries nowadays, in place of labor, now they are using more number of machines, and due to that the employment opportunities is also reducing. So in agriculture and industries, mechanization was adopted, which increased employment at slower rate. Same way, in agriculture also, in the initial years, there were bullock cart and hand pumps and everything were used for the production or for the farming. But now we are having a totally automatic technology where submersible pumps and sprinkle pumps are there, tractors and threshers are there, who reduces the importance of labors in agriculture sector also, and that's why more and more labor becomes unemployed. So in industrial sector also, to increase productivity and to get security against organized labor unions, such a policy is adopted which saves labor. In 1 or 2 decades ago, there were the rule of trade unions, or we can say the labor unions, on all the industries which were working. Because at that time the labor is the main element in any of the production technique or in any of the factory. They are having their own labor unions, or the common labor union between 5 or 10 companies are there. As they are knowing the importance of labor in the production of a factory, sometimes they are demanding more wages, better facilities and everything. And if the employer is not focusing on their demand, or if he not fulfill their demand, then it may result into longest strikes and lockdown in factories, which results into the lower rate of production, and the company and the country suffers a loss of the production. So in industrial sector, also to increase productivity and to get security, these are the two main reasons, because as a labor they are having their own limitation of production. As they are the living thing, they are getting tired or boredom or sometimes they are facing a stress also, which results into highest number of accidents in the factories, and the factory has to pay more and more return for the accidents happen in the factory itself. So in industrial sector, also to increase productivity, because the limitation of humans, the productivity is limited, but nowadays due to the machines or use of machines, we are having 24/7 working habits or working culture is there, where the member or the laborers are in the three shifts, but the machines is only one where they are working. So in industrial sector, to increase productivity and to get security against organized labor unions, like we discuss about this, that whenever their demand is not fulfilled by the employer, they are going on a strike, and the organization itself suffers a loss in production, and sometimes if they not fulfill the orders in a timely manner, then they have to suffer a loss of money, loss of prestige, and loss of goodwill also. So for both these reasons, to increase the productivity in industrial sector as well as to get security against organized labor union, such a policy is adopted which saves labor. Today, even today, there are labor unions are there, but nowadays they are knowing the importance of their in a factory, and same way the importance of a factory in their own life, and that's why their demand are reasonable, and they are not in the favor of going on a strike or lockdown, because it may result into the loss of employment. But at the initial years, it was the very big headache for majority of the businessmen, that they cannot survive even in this kind of situation. Other than that, so till we have discussed that during the second 5-year plan, because of the heavy and basic industry, then in planning scheme, in place of capital intensive technique instead of labor intensive technique, then in agriculture and industries mechanization was adopted, and lastly in industrial sector, to increase productivity and get security against organized labor union. All these measures reduces the employment ratio, and that results into unemployment. Now let us discuss other part of this particular topic, that other than that, railway, irrigation, roads, construction and public sector of state also uses capital intensive technique. In the initial years of railway, 95% of the work is done by the laborers. In irrigation projects like dams, canals, etc., also there are majority of the labor force who are working. Then in roads construction or construction of a building also, there are majority of the number of employees who are working. And public sector, where government is trying to provide employment to the unemployed people by the way of constructing road, dams, schools, colleges, etc. In all this sector, initially the labor intensive production technique was used, and the maximum benefit will be given to the laborers. But nowadays in all these projects also, whether it is railway or irrigation or roads or construction, or in even public sector of state also, capital intensive production techniques is using instead of labor intensive production techniques. Nowadays we are seeing that all these activities can be done with the help of machines instead of humans, and as a result the unemployment problem has become acute. This particular point is very important from the examination point of view, because either in 1 mark or in 3 mark, the question from this particular topic will be asked, like what is capital intensive production technique, which are the sectors in favor of capital intensive production technique, why the capital intensive production technique is not adopted in India, so etc. etc. That kind of question can be asked, and you have to write this full paragraph in your answer. And because of all these problem and because of all these reason, that is why Bhagwati committee, which we discussed in the last lecture also, and Venkatraman committee, which was formed to study unemployment, also recommended to use less of mechanization. It means they are in a favor that if possible, then maximum chances should be given to the laborers instead of these capital intensive goods and machineries, so that we can give more number of employment opportunities to the people. And Bhagwati committee and Venkatraman committees not only study the unemployment, but they are also given some of the measures which we are going to discuss after completion of this particular topic. Third one is a lack of vocational education. If we start this point today, then it may happen that due to time constraint we cannot discuss. But if we read it in today's lecture, then we can explain or we can study it in the next lecture. Point number 5, that is lack of vocational education. In India, one reason for a high educational unemployment is ineffective educational system. It is one of the obvious reasons in today's educational system that our high educational is the main reason for the unemployment. It is not due to higher education in the country, but due to the ineffective education system, which cannot focus on the modern problems or not focusing on the employment areas where majority of the people are required. We'll discuss this point in a detail in next lecture, but right now let us have a glimpse of this particular topic. Those who can work according to the changing working atmosphere in every sector, such types of workers are not created. This is one of the limitation of our education. Lack of vocational education means a type of education where the education related to the business, job or employment or profession is given. It means from schooling or from college itself, we are providing training based education where the actual working conditions should be there, or some kind of articleship or apprentice kind of working is there, in which you will get actual working experience in the factory premises or from the studies itself. So in India we are having this kind of lack of vocational education where we are not providing education related to job policies or related to job opportunities. With the objective of increasing economic growth rate, technology and mechanization has been adopted by industries and agriculture. So such laborers are required who have knowledge of these techniques, but the present education system is opposite to that. Hence, skilled laborers are few because of lack of vocational education. Present education failed in mental and physical formation of human being even after acquiring education. A person is incapable of self-employment and suffers from the problem of unemployment. We'll discuss this point in a detail in next lecture because I want to clarify some of the more things regarding the vocational education. That's why we conclude our session over here itself. In this lecture we discussed basically other two reasons of unemployment, that is low rate of savings and investment, which is because of the high population growth rate. Per capita income is very less, and due to that the savings and investment is less, which results into the less number of employment opportunities. And second one is a capital intensive production technique. In spite of the labor intensive production techniques, which is the blessing for a country like India. We are using more capital intensive production techniques where instead of labors we are using more machines and mechanization is there, and due to that we faces the highest level of unemployment instead of employment opportunities. And we discussed all the reasons which are given over here, whether it starts from the 5-year plan and negligence of this labor intensive production techniques to mechanization, and then to increase the productivity and get security against organized labor unions, railway irrigation etc. project uses capital intensive techniques etc. we discussed in this particular topic. So from next lecture onwards we start with the point number 5th, that is lack of vocational education. Till that, understand these points very clearly, and if possible then write in your concept or rough book or fair book so that it gets more clear. Thank you very much, class.